Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And it is November, and Claudia Trivelas, welcome back to High Road to Humanity.
Hey, Nancy, and welcome to November.
I know, we were just talking about it, you guys. Well, Claudia's our astrological expert, and she does something called human design, and she comes on every month, but things have been really crazy. So I'm just going to ask you, what is going on?
There's a lot going on. Like, we've come into the peak of the year in one sense. It's like the culmination of actually the last year and a half, last year and 3/4 of all this tension that we've been experiencing on the planet. I mean, you don't have to, whether or not you're experiencing, internal tension, there's certainly enough external tension to go around. So some of that's got to rub off, in some way, shape, or form. But there's a lot of opposing themes. So there's a Mars versus Venus theme that's happening. What does that mean? So Mars is, I gotta go for it. I gotta do it. You chomping at the bit to get there to accomplish this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
And Venus says, no, wait, maybe you just need to wait for it to come to you. And it's trying to find that balance. And it's saying, oh, do you really want it? Does this fit with your values? Is this something you want, or your desires just running away from you?
So is
So
it
that's
a choice? Is it like giving us a choice at this point? Is that what?
well, the whole point is to establish more conscious awareness. Like, the earth really wants everyone to grow to the next level of consciousness right now, because we're meant to bring this planet, and specifically even this country, into its next level of conscious awareness. This country was formed on, it was an experiment for the higher realms.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Now, as you're talking, I don't know why, but I'm thinking about Nancy Pelosi's husband that was attacked, and that kind of energy that's going on. And I know elections coming up. I bring this up because I see election time. I see crazy stuff like attacks like that. I mean, is that part of this energy? I hate to bring up the negative.
Yeah, because it's the Mars, the attack is the Mars.
It's horrible. All this stuff is horrible. So what is that? I mean, is it showing us that we can't live like this anymore and we just need to change?
Absolutely. Because it's not only the Mars versus Venus, the other opposition of energies is taking place, is this theme of, it's the Saturn-Uranus theme. It's like, what do we need to keep and what needs to change so that we can move forward as a species? But
Right.
yeah, we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater either. I mean, some things, some traditions are worth keeping, but some aren't.
Well, you have on here that Mars retrogrades on 10/31 to 1/12 of 23. And you say that there will be the energy levels, there'll be turmoil. I mean, is this this is gonna go for a little bit. This turmoil is gonna go through January.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary time, actually, in history. Because again, Saturn, Uranus, we're in between two eclipses. And that's 2 times a year, there are 2 eclipses. And what happens at those times is that the sun, moon, and the earth all move around and change positions.
Okay.
So either the moon's in between the sun and the earth, or the earth is between the sun and the moon, is what's coming up on November 8th. So what that does is it affects people, especially, when the sun is being interfered with. even if it's blocked for a minute, what does that do to the amount of heat coming to the planet? I mean, it sounds like a subtle thing, but it's a big deal, actually.
Well, yeah, and you keep saying the 8th, and that's election day. So this is bizarre. I mean, I guess not to you. You look at it like, well, of course it's on the 8th, but I look at it like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
It is bizarre. I mean, it's so bizarre. It's like completely bizarre because what's, it's happening at so many different levels.
Right.
This whole dynamic of Mars, Venus, and Saturn, Uranus, and in a nutshell, I would say that it's a maturation. Like it's requiring people to grow up,
Yeah.
to mature, and to really look at what's important, what values are important. And with the Mars in Gemini, because Mars is in Gemini for 7 months, and now it's retrograde, which is even a bigger deal. And it's not just retrograde and in the same sign going back and forth, the sign that has to do with communication, the sign that has to do with how to express your beliefs. But it's also a phenomenon that's called out of bounds. So it's like moving to the far reaches of of our solar system is an elliptic. So when a planet moves outside of the boundaries of between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, it's called out of bounds, and it makes it a little wild. It's not having that same magnetic connection that it normally would. So when Mars is retrograde, and it's retrograde for so long, because it's actually retrograde for a pretty long period of time, and it's also out of bounds for a very long period of time. Some events that have happened with long out of bound periods are in 1986 was Chernobyl.
Yeah.
In 2001 was 9/11. And in 2007, 2008 was the global financial crisis. These are 3 events that happened when Mars was out of bounds for as long as it's out of bounds now, which is almost 6 months.
So you feel like, and I don't like to, put this out there, but you feel like with everything going on, the elections and all of that, something major could really happen.
Well, I think it's up to every person individually to take personal responsibility for themselves so that things don't happen, not to put out negative vibes, basically.
Right, right. Well, yeah, and that's what I'm seeing, with this Elon Musk has bought Twitter, which on one hand is good because you feel like, well, maybe, he got rid of some people who weren't doing weren't being honest. But then on the flip side, what's it gonna be like now? I mean, it's just then that's communication.
Exactly. Social media.
So what do you see? I mean, I know you don't like to always predict, but what do you see happening after for the election? Let's talk about the election first.
Let's talk about the eclipse, which is on election day.
Okay.
So we have, this Saturn, this full moon,
Right.
which is what a lunar eclipse is, right?
This is crazy. Okay.
So it's a full moon. What makes it an eclipse is that the Earth moves between the sun and the moon. So
Okay.
that's a whole juxtaposition of perspective, and when we have a new perspective, we see things with fresh eyes.
Okay.
The full moon is in Taurus, the sign of values and stability of sorts, but it's stability based on your values, what's important.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got that dynamic conjunct Uranus, the planet of the unexpected, but also the planet, it's very futuristic. It's like, what do we need to bring in to make life better? But it's square Saturn as well. So Saturn is really, Saturn is saying to us, okay, maybe a little personal responsibility will give more freedom in the long run. Taurus is very sensual, as is the Scorpio energy.
Okay. Well, and I think I can just, my feeling on this is when people go out to vote, they're going to vote for, because it's really come down to, daily living. I mean, it's not all about he said, she said. It's really about there's a lot of people hurting right now. There's a lot of people, who are having a hard time. I see this, I see it all over the place. People don't want to talk about it, but groceries have gone up. Gas has gone up, it's come down some, but it's still expensive. I think people are concerned about heating their homes. I'm just being straight up on this one, because fuel oil, if you are in a cold place, to heat your home will cost a lot this winter, a lot more than it ever has. And
Right.
even if you work out of the house, you still got to heat the house. So
Yeah.
everything, so when you've got food going up and heat going up, I think it just feels
Why
to
are
me,
all the, yeah,
yeah,
and
it
why
just
are all those going up? Like, what's affecting all that?
yeah, it just feels like it's all the things that keep us, you
Well,
know,
it goes
going.
back to the Mars, but it
Yeah.
goes back to Mars. It's this war in Ukraine. That's why fuel prices have gone up. One reason, aside from corporate greed, but that's one big reason fuel prices have gone up, right? Because a lot of fuel comes from that area.
Right. So maybe we'll start producing it ourselves. Like,
Right.
right.
And what about food prices? Well, where does all the grain come from? Ukraine. And what's happening? It's all being blocked. It's not being shipped out.
Well, yeah, because things are really expensive when you go to the grocery store right now. And people aren't, I don't know. I don't see many people really talking about it, but when you go to the store, you can see it on their faces.
But see, then again, this is, what are some of the changes that this is triggering? You just mentioned one of them, which is, okay, then why are we so dependent on foreign oil?
Right. We need to be producing our own oil. And the other thing is we need to be growing our own food.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So, that's the positive of, it's a squeeze, like we're being squeezed into seeing other ways of doing things.
Well, yeah, we've gotten so, I hate to say this, but we've gotten onto all this technology and, do we have an Apple Watch and do we have an Apple phone and do you have an Apple computer and do you have the right clothes and do you have all this? Well, gosh, let's get back to basics, man. Do we have heat? Do we have food? Do we have water? Do we have each other? Do we have
Yeah,
love?
yeah,
Is that what this is?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's all the Taurus. That's a Taurus. Like, and when you bring the Saturn into it, it's like, what do we need to be sustainable? Because
Mm.
Saturn wants to be sustainable, it wants to create structures that work. And we've been all over the place as a society,
Right.
even production. How many things have been produced in China,
Yeah, it
manufactured?
shouldn't be, right. This should be
Yeah.
produced here. Well, and you say, I'm looking at this and she gives me cheat sheets, you guys. But you talk about the US chart. Do you want to address that? Because you say Mars is retro in conjunction to Mars in the seventh house, which is what we're talking about of the US chart.
Right. So the US chart
Yeah.
has two major things going on right now.
Okay.
One being that this whole thing that's going on with Mars is happening in the US chart has Mars in Gemini. So the Mars being in Gemini is affecting the US chart. And it's affecting it because it's in the seventh house, which has to do with its relationship to other countries as well.
So this thing with Ukraine has affected everybody, but it's really affected us in a lot of ways because of the oil. And has it affected everyone, I guess, across the country or across the world with the oil and with the grain?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're more affected than we are, in fact.
Mhm.
Europe and other countries. I mean, people are starving in Africa as a result of this grain shortage. I mean, there's serious repercussions happening,
Okay.
all over the place. And the other thing happening in the US chart is that Pluto, the planet Pluto of transformation, is conjuncting the US chart, the Pluto in the US chart. So again, it's, the democracy theme is important. We like to say, oh, that's way too abstract. It's more important what's, kitchen table items. But it's not, because if we don't have democracy, we're not going to have these freedoms that everybody wants here. I mean, people don't even want to be restricted for a half a millisecond. Everybody wants what they want right now.
Mhm.
And
Gotta
if
be
we
some changes, yeah, there has to be some changes going on. And you
Right.
see that happen. Okay, so what do you see as the outcome? Do you see that happening, Claudia? I mean, what's your prediction of it?
Well, I think I think a lot of the celestial beings, the angels and guides, etc., because this country was founded on a spiritual premise. The Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, let's get back to God. Can we get back to God, please?
Yeah, we're divinely inspired. And part of that is freedom, that all men are created equal. It's like, and this is taking all that and saying, well, how are you treating your fellow man?
Well, yeah, yeah,
This country was founded on principles of unity.
right, exactly. Well, I'm so
Yeah,
glad you're bringing this up, because I'm just going to get on my soapbox real quick, because we've taken God, God's on the dollar bill, by the way. In God we trust. Well,
yeah,
we've taken him out of the schools and we've made it not cool to say God. Do you know that when I try to type God, it spell corrects me?
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And those are the things I've noticed this, because I'm a religious person, and when I type certain things, it doesn't even know God, it doesn't know heaven, it doesn't know Jesus. It tries to tell me other weird things. And that tells me that we've really got away from what's really important. And you can say higher source, you can say, higher vibration, but like you said, the United States was founded on principles, you
Right.
know, um,
Religious
trust,
freedom,
religious freedom. Well, no, you're right. Yeah, go
all
ahead.
men are created equal.
Right, exactly. And all of that has gone away.
Well, I think we hear about the part of it that has gone away because, it's like the loudest, I can't think of what that expression is,
Yeah, I
but
know what right. Gets the,
whatever it is that makes the most noise, we think is true all around, but it's not true. It's a small percentage, of the population that really are, creating havoc. But, then to go back and look at it, well, but this is our time to renew our
change,
conviction
to
to
change it.
democracy and to the principles that this country was founded on. And that's the whole point of, this war in Ukraine and Russia. It's like, democracies, like you don't just invade a country.
Yeah, yeah. You can't just do that kind of stuff. Well, you also talk about, and tell me if I'm skipping ahead too far, November 11th, the square of the sun and Saturn becomes exact on November 11th. The path to follow becomes clear now, and it's advisable to take the first steps decisively and not to wait for a miracle. Well, I like to wait for miracles.
Well, the eclipse, the Uranus is one of the planets that can bring in a miracle because it's like that divine inspiration.
Yes, I believe in miracles.
The symbol of Uranus is, the lightning bolt. So it's like, it's like that aha moment, which,
Okay.
can lead to a miracle. It's the unexpected.
Okay.
There's a few other miracles come in a few different ways. They can come as divine inspiration. They can come as like a aha moment. I know. There's a few different ways that it can come through to us.
So when
But
that comes, does that mean that that's kind of a wake-up call for people?
well, the eclipse is a wake-up call because that's where the moon is conjunct the Uranus. So the sun and moon are in opposition, and when Uranus is in the mix and Saturn's in the mix. So it's saying, okay, like where do you need to take responsibility for what's going on, and really try to make this the best thing possible.
Right. Life gets easier around the middle of the month.
I know, it's not something. This is
Yeah.
really the toughest time. The first 2 weeks of November are really the toughest time. The first week and a half, really, the first 10, 11 days. But what was going on even coming into November 1st, which is today, last week in human design, the sun was moving through the gate of struggle. So what does that mean? We think, well, we shouldn't have struggle, but struggle is one of the 64 hexagrams in the I Ching. It's one of the 64 gates in human design that has a basis in the I Ching. So it's it's an impulse of God that is necessary, because sometimes through struggle, you realize what's important.
Okay, that's
So
cool.
so we've all been in the squeeze of struggle, but it's
I have.
not until we look back at it. As we look back at things, we can put it into better perspective.
And see the blessing. We can see the blessing when we look back.
And that's why I think that's the energy that'll start shifting around just after the middle of the month, because as planets start to go into Sagittarius, and the new moon in Sagittarius, that's on the I think it's the 23rd.
Yes.
Right. What happens with that is that it'll give perspective. You can look back and say, wow, that was horrible, but here's the silver lining. Here's what
Right.
this is a blessing that we received.
Now, I want to get back to communication, because you say, because I'm really, this 11-19, communication remains challenging as retrograde Mars in Gemini squares Neptune in Pisces. Exchanges with others now need special attention to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings.
And that's true even now. Like
Okay.
that's also was true, because don't forget, we're in the midst of 2 eclipses. The first new moon eclipse was October 25th. So the new moon governs the whole 30, 29, 30-day period, right?
Mhm.
And then the full moon eclipse, full moons are the culmination. So typically full moons bring light to a situation. So if you're
Okay.
walking at night, right, when the moon is full, you can see where you're going. So
Right.
it can bring illumination. But if there's an eclipse, it's blocking out the light of the moon.
That's right.
So, there's all these juxtapositions. I mean, it's a very weird time going on, that's happening.
What do you think? What's your I know you don't like to predict on everything, but what do you think about Elon Musk and the Twitter thing? And because it's happening at this time, is that a shakeup in the communication, rearranging? I mean, what do you think with this whole, it's a big deal.
I don't know that Twitter, I think other new social media platforms are going to come forward as a result.
Because you don't think what? Because why? Why do you think that? Maybe he goes in there and he straightens it out so it's done proper, so that it's not biased and the news is delivered properly like it should be.
Maybe he does, but he hasn't shown that side.
Yeah, but I think, but here's the thing. I think this is just Nancy's opinion, and I'll say it. I just feel like the guy bought it so he could help humanity, because everything was getting too out of whack. And you had people in there who weren't being straight up and honest. And that's one thing about High Road to Humanity. I always try to be as straight up and honest as I possibly can. And I think a lot of people, because we just don't get the real deal most of the time. Like what's really going on? Like we're always like going, what's really going on? You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know his chart, so I can't
No,
really.
I don't. I know, but the communication wise, I guess, is what I'm
I
saying.
mean, there's one premise about freedom of speech that has a higher element, of course. But by the same token, and that's part of Mars and Gemini for this whole period of time.
Is the
Being
free speech?
like to realize, it's to realize that your words have power. So there's a difference between free speech and spewing negativity that can create violence.
Right.
And I'm not sure he's got that piece of it yet. Maybe he will, because if enough advertisers pull out, he'll have to make those kind of changes. But, Mars and Gemini, especially retrograde, is about what are you saying? Be conscious of, your speech. Even in the beginning was a word, the word holds power. So we can't just spew all this negativity.
Right. Well, and that's what people do, and since we talked about this really quick, like even on TikTok, because I pull angel cards, you guys know that on TikTok under High Road to Humanity, but I will see people doing cards and they're cursing.
Yeah.
To
I
me,
mean, and there's
yeah,
differences with it. Like, right, there's differences in the intent.
yeah, but that's the whole thing. It's like, how can you? Okay, so let me just throw this out there. It just blows my mind because I come from God, and I'm doing a godly thing, and I'm doing it, and the angels say, and I do a prayer and the whole bit, and then you got somebody else out there who's like F this and F that, and look at this effing card, and I'm like, you're putting that when you say that word. Because I
Yeah.
used to be guilty of it. I'm just going to be honest. I'm no perfect person. I used to be guilty of it myself, and I still am sometimes. But when you speak like that, then that energy goes out into the universe, and you're doing that, and people think it's okay. That's my point, I guess I want to make.
No, I agree with you 100%, especially you're putting it out on the airwaves.
Well, yeah.
Saturn in Aquarius. Aquarius rules technology.
Yeah.
Mars and Gemini, communication.
I mean,
It's,
didn't your mama ever say don't speak like that in public?
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
But
That,
it's also, it's the intent behind it. Like, it's one thing to say, oh shit, something like
yeah,
that lightheartedly.
yeah.
But when it's directed toward people,
Oh,
you know,
yeah. I see a little kid. They've got a little kid. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I got to say this. They've got this little kid, and I've seen this several times cursing. You know how little kids, when they're 2 and you curse and they start to say it, people recording them and then putting it on the internet. Like it's funny, like, ha 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 ha.
yeah.
It's really just sad, but that's the mentality. I guess my point is that's the mentality of where people are, and that has to stop.
Well, this whole Mars and Gemini for 7 months, which is an extremely long period of time, where it goes back and, where it goes retrograde backward and then forward, which means it's a redo or a re-understanding of things. Plus it's out of bounds, which takes it to another whole level. It's really about people getting it, how important speech is.
Whatever you say goes out into the universe, and the universe responds accordingly. Our words have vibration. Jesus
Yeah.
said this in the Bible. He told us how powerful our words are, but we've become so loose-lipped.
Yeah. So on the positive side, hopefully at the end of this Mars and Gemini period, people are going to be a little more conscious of their speech. Also with the eclipse, with the Saturn in Aquarius, and Saturn's trining the Mars and Gemini, it's in a harmonious aspect.
Mhm.
It's especially going to affect social media
Oh,
or any kind of public communication, because Aquarius is about humanity.
right.
How is your speech going out there to humanity, and what is it generating? What are the repercussions of what you're saying? And because it's prominent in this eclipse, it's like, where do you need to be more disciplined to gain more freedom?
Mhm.
And isn't that the
What
idea?
do you do with vinegar? Well, no, it's true. I mean, when you speak nicely, you get more than if you speak harshly, correct?
Yes. And also the Aquarius energy is the democracy kind of energy too, because it's like where do you need responsibility to get more freedom? Like, we want to have the freedom of speech, right? And that's what a democracy is for, but there's a responsibility that comes with it. It's not just, well, I can do whatever I want whenever I feel like it. That's freedom. That's not freedom.
No, and that's what's become a problem. And that's when we have all this craziness going on in our world. Here where I'm at, I see so many stores being robbed by people, and the security guards doing nothing, and people just going in and taking what they want and thinking it's okay.
Yeah,
And
it's the
it's not.
greed. It's the greed, like our values. And that's what I do think, and I do believe that the effect not only of this eclipse, which can last, it's a very long eclipse, which means it's very powerful, like
How long does it go through January, right? How long does the eclipse go?
well, it's on the 8th, but it lasts for like 85 minutes or something
Oh,
like
okay, okay, okay,
very long for an eclipse, which
okay.
means think of it as if so it's like burning a hole in the earth.
Oh my God.
I mean, in a sense that it's having an effect.
Right, the energy. Let's just say, let's go with
Yeah.
that. It's
Like
the
a
energy.
laser. It's like a laser that's having an effect. So things are gonna change. There's no way there aren't gonna be some changes for the better. I'm being positive, but I believe that because I think it's only a small number of people that are really pulling the energy down.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
So I believe in the goodness of humanity, you know.
Too, for every nasty person, there's a couple nice people. And
Yeah,
when someone says a kind word or is decent or nice, it makes up for that person who wasn't.
right.
And so anyway, yes, there's still
And just to backtrack to the whole theme that we started with, the Mars Venus, because so that's all the Martian stuff that's going on. That's a big learning experience over the next 6 months, because it's already been in Gemini for a while. But Venus went through this whole new cycle, which is very impressive. And Venus itself, the planet of love,
Mhm.
the, is a very interesting planet, because what it does is that its orbit, looking at it from Earth, every 8 years, if you outlined its track, it creates a 5-pointed star.
Right.
And it's just so interesting. And that's where the expression, the rose of Venus, or that Venus rules roses, or why people give roses on Valentine's Day, which is, presumably a day of Venus. So what happened that's really unusual, really for the first time in 270 years, which is kind of interesting to think about this, that this point that was made on October 22nd, this Venus star point, which made another point in the star, happened in the sign of Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So it's a real Venus event, because for the last large number, over 100 years, Venus star points have been in Mars ruled signs like Scorpio and Aries, predominantly. So it hasn't allowed that real Venusian energy to come through. So it's almost like this is creating a new wave, a whole new Venus cycle that's similar in a way to the Renaissance, because the last time this happened was back in 1770.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's, I think, going to really shift the energy into a more
Loving.
more loving vibration, because it's in Libra, which is concerned about fairness and justice. So, there are themes happening here that are very important in terms of how do we speak, how do we treat each other,
Yeah.
what are our values, do we really have the values that are sustainable?
Yeah. As you're speaking, I'm just gonna tell you what I feel intuitively. And I don't like to predict, but I feel like there are gonna be food shortages and things that'll really happen that will catapult people to be more loving and caring, because it's almost like until we have something really traumatic happen, like
Mhm.
9/11. I hate to say this, I don't want to predict this, but this is what I feel. I feel like something big's got to happen where people are like, wait a minute, we've forgotten what's so important here for us to catapult. And then I feel like the Venus energy comes in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, even going back to Ukraine, I mean, just looking at the people supporting each other there,
Mhm.
they have to.
But I mean, here, I think it's going to hit home.
Yeah. Well, but the ideal would be not to have catastrophe for it to hit, for it to hit home.
Right, but it's like people don't learn unless, I hate to say this, and God forgive me. I just feel like people don't learn unless something really, unless it hits home. It's got to hit home before people change. That's what I think. I hate to say that, but that's what I feel.
Well,
Really
let's pray for it to be as gentle as
as
possible.
possible. You think this too, don't you?
Yes, I mean, disaster, it's a metaphysical principle that last resort to bring people together in a way are through disasters.
Right.
But and the last time Mars was out of bounds for this period of time, did correlate with disasters,
With 9/11.
with in 1986 with Chernobyl, with 2001 9/11, and 2007 2008 the global financial crisis.
Right. And you know what that was like? That was hell. Excuse my
Yeah,
language.
yeah.
So I just feel like, and I'm not trying to wish it on anybody or feel that way. It would be nice to say, oh, everybody's awake and they can do this. But I don't know. That's what I think. But I think it'll be okay because, like you say, people will realize what's really important. The love will come in, and that vibration is needed, and will change.
Yeah.
That's what I hope.
Yeah, and I do think I certainly pray for, um, grace and ease for this transition that humanity is going through, because the last thing is, would have to be for disaster.
Right, right. 11:22, Sun in Sagittarius. The confident mood is strengthening, and perhaps some are already dreaming that everything will be back to the way it used to be. But for real healing to occur, the wounds that have been inflicted in recent months must be visible. That's what we're talking about. The real deal, that's coming out. Like, even like I brought up earlier, Nancy Pelosi's husband. I mean, she's not my favorite person, but you don't want to see somebody come in and start harming. I mean, that's what it's come to. My gosh.
Yeah, I mean,
That's like nuts. It's gotten really nuts, like you're not safe. Like people, I saw just recently, and I don't mean to be negative because I'm not a negative kind of girl, but like I even saw yesterday on the news, there was a Halloween party, or I guess it was this morning, there was a Halloween party and the girl was leaving and somebody was driving with their hood up. Why would you drive with your hood up? And they hit her and they drug her and didn't even know. Yeah, and it's like people are so like into themselves and into their own deal that they have no clue what's going on around them. And this crazy stuff is going on. It's almost like we got to stop this me mentality. I hate
it's
to get
showing every single desire, like time to have a little bit of control, self-control. That's that whole principle with Saturn being there, affecting the Taurus, which can be very sensual and get carried away with sensuality, and the Scorpio energy, where the sun is and where the south node of the moon is, which has a lot to do with, I want this, I have to have this, where the desire becomes out of control.
And that's where that's coming from, isn't it? Yeah, just like bizarre stuff like that. And it's like, come on, let's bring it back. I used to work out with a trainer and he used to say, Nancy, you're out here. We need to bring it back. And that's how I feel about humanity right now. We're out here and we need to come back. You know what I mean?
Well, I do think this will happen. I think that these hard times are over. No, I don't think they're over. I think we'll get a little respite, around this middle of the month, and with the Sagittarius energy starts coming in. And I do think that there are subtle shifts of change that are happening, and we're probably not going to see the rewards from those subtle shifts, for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Some of them may start to be visible by the end of the month.
Well, you
But
see 11:24 to 11:26, the moon, Mercury, and Venus form trine to Chiron, fosters resolving old issues. So I like that. So if you've got old issues that are going on, what do you mean, personally or with other people, or what do you mean by that?
both. Well, it all comes from oneself, right?
Mhm.
Like Chiron is the wounded healer. It's the energy of the shaman. It's like the principle of a shaman is that it's through their struggles. So many of them would have like near-death experiences and come back. It's through or some serious illness and, find healing. So it's through that they become more and more empowered. And that gives them the ability to help other people because they've been through it themselves. So that's, the Chiron energy is important, but you have to do the work. You got to at least be aware of what it is that needs to be healed inside oneself.
Yeah, that's really the key to this whole thing is everybody's got to go within themselves. I can't help you. You can't help me. We all got to do, I mean, we can talk to each other and support each other. And that's wonderful. But the healing's got to come from within each individual to raise the vibration to change things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're at, isn't it?
And that's what's important now is to raise the vibration. So what can each individual do? The best thing each person can do is to keep their own vibration high, whatever tools that you have, whether that's prayer, whether that's
Right.
going
Meditation.
going for a walk in the woods or, soothing music, whatever tools that one has at their disposal, this is the time to be using them.
Okay. 1129, you see Mercury opposes Mars. Watch what you say. We talked a little bit about this. Saturn forms a trine to Mars the day before and a sextile to Mercury the day after. I always look at her notes and watch myself. Be careful what you say today, and this goes back to what we were discussing. People just spew before they think. I used to do it too. I'm guilty of it. I've changed. I really try to watch it before and there's times where I don't do as good but at least I start to recognize. Do you feel that way or?
That's, that's conscious awareness. That's expanding one's self-awareness, and that's what we're here for.
I think it's great. So November is a tough month.
November is a tough month, yes. October was a tough month too.
Now, will December be better?
Like there's still residues of this stuff and shifting, but I think this is the biggest hump.
It really is. Huh?
October, first half November is the biggest hump. Not saying that everything's hunky-dory after that, but because I think there's still some shiftings, that are happening. Mercury, Mars is going to be retrograde for a while, through January. It's going to be out of bounds even longer up through May. So that's a big deal, in terms of violence and discord and, becoming aware of violence and discord and how to avoid creating it basically yourself. Like if you can't, there's another expression, I'm not remembering all these expressions right now, but if you can't be part of the solution, don't be part of the problem. That's the expression.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. We got to change how we think and how we treat each other. And I really, it all falls down to their connection with the divine source energy.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, you guys, I say it every show, just connect with the divine, take a minute in the morning, connect. I'm having a crazy time myself too, but I connect every day and stay as balanced as I possibly can and become aware. That's all you can do.
Exactly.
What do you want to leave us with today, Claudia?
Well, things, change is looking at change as a positive. The chaos, sometimes chaos comes before change, because it needs to, things need to come to the surface before they're resolved. But I do believe that we are on a track to resolve these things and that we are moving to a better place. Each person needs to take personal responsibility as much as they can. That's the message of this eclipse that comes up.
I love it. Because if we each take responsibility, then we raise the vibration and the collective will change how things are here, becoming a more loving society.
And on the downside, I think when we don't take responsibility and when we're part of the problem, we're going to get slapped on the hand.
I agree. Wow.
Mainly because Saturn's there, and Saturn's the cosmic teacher. So it's like Saturn is saying, this has been building for the last, year and 3/4, basically, since the beginning of 2021, the Saturn-Uranus square in the heavens. So it's been churning things up, but it's
Giving
also
people the opportunity, This is like the last push. It's like either you get it or you don't.
right. Exactly.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So
Thank you.
it's a culmination, really.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you came in to talk about this. I'll tell you, life has not been easy, but when you come and you talk to us about what's going on, it just seems to make a little more sense. So thank you.
My pleasure. Love
guys-
talking. We have fun at the same time.
I know, we really do. Give everybody your information, Claudia, before we get out of here today.
My website is discoveryourimprint.com. And also I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, Discover Your Imprint, or I can be reached on Facebook with my name, Claudia Trivelas, Trivelas.
And this is going to be on Binge TV, and I'll probably put this one up on YouTube too, so a lot of people can benefit from it. Claudia, thank you so much.
Take care, Nancy. Have a good one.
December. Yeah. All right, you guys, we're going to get out of here. This is Nancy Yearout. If you want to visit me, go to nancyyearout.com and you can book a reading with me. So everybody take care. Have a terrific week and God bless. Please join me next time on the High Road with stories full of love and hope for our future. You can find High Road to Humanity on TogiNet Radio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now watch the High Road on Binge TV networks. My channel is High Road to Humanity. Have a blessed week, and know by staying on the High Road, you will make it to your destination. For a psychic empath reading, visit my website, nancyyearout.com, to book your date and time with me. I will deliver your messages from the angels, and God bless.